Hi, welcome to the Leaders Live Roundtable, week 4. This week is a very powerful conversation. We have gathered a bunch of really powerful leaders and way showers of different generations, different backgrounds, all to discuss the very important topic of letting go. So stay tuned. Welcome, Tim and Sharon. Welcome, Rick. Welcome, Rome. And welcome, Stephanie. We have some new people here, and I'm going to do a brief intro for everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So we have Rick Spence in the house, who is a business journalist, consultant, and speaker specializing in startup innovation and social entrepreneurship. He is a former editor and publisher of The Profit magazine for Canadian entrepreneurs. And for 15 years, he wrote a weekly column on entrepreneurship and innovation. He is currently the host of Startup Canada podcast and a senior editor at the Corporate Knights, the magazine of clean capitalism. And he is also writing a book on startup culture and innovation. Welcome, Rick. Thank you for being here. We have Stephanie in the house, who is a 25-year-old from Rhode Island with a degree in psychology and a minor in thanatology. I hope I said that right. She spent a year at law school after that, and after a deep awakening, she left proudly to help educate people on consciousness. She's a TikTok creator with a following of over 400,000. And she's also a member of the New Earth Project, which is how we met Stephanie. And you've seen Rome. Rome has been a supporter for a long time.
Namaste.
Native to the Midwest US, he is a yogi and a land and animal caretaker down there. And some define him as a sage, empathic, intuitive life coach. He loves to serve and inspire others. He also loves to create. He's an artist and also the host of the new podcast, Come As You Are. And we have, of course, Tim and Sharon. Tim and Sharon are singer-songwriters, the co-founder of Lightcore Enlightened Leadership, where they say the core of business is people and the core of people is light. And we've obviously been working together and have co-founded Flow Network. And we're going to have a lovely conversation on letting go. Now, letting go, there's what I'd love to bring to the table with this is, first of all, what does that mean to you? Maybe when or how have you experienced resistance in letting go? Why is letting go important? And whatever else flows. This is an unscripted conversation. The only thing scripted is the topic and the theme, and of course, the bios that I just read. So, Tim, I've just started the Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins, and you have been so influenced by his work and impacted so many with your hand model, which is what was inspired by David Hawkins in terms of letting go. So I thought, let's throw it over to you first. And what does letting go mean to you?
Well, letting go for me, keeping it short, because I'm starting to major in the idea of short responses. So letting go is about letting go of beliefs and interpretations that are no longer serving you. And the case in point comes up in business often when business leaders are actually trying to steer a certain path or influence people that aren't really actually getting it, or clients that aren't really getting it, and being able to let go and really allow whatever actually is meant to present in a way that everybody is actually correct. Let's get on the same page and then start again and or shift gears. So letting go is really a stop doing scenario, because we like the idea of stop doing, start doing, and then keep doing. So the stop doing bit is the letting go bit. And as much as that is intellectually fairly simple to state, it's wildly difficult.
Yeah, I'm called to read this. I just was reading the foreword really quickly this morning, and it says here, are we willing to imagine a new life for ourselves characterized by effortless success, freedom from resentment, gratitude for all that's happened to us, inspiration, love, joy, win-win resolutions, happiness, and creative expressions. And one of the biggest hurdles to happiness, he tells us, is the belief that it isn't possible. To speak to your beliefs, what beliefs are we holding on to that we need to let go of in order to step into these new beliefs that, what if there are win-win solutions? What if we can experience more inspiration, joy, connection, community, and creativity? Such beliefs as there's got to be a catch, or it's too good to be true, or it can happen for me, but not for others. So I love that you brought that up right away, is like the letting go of beliefs. Does anyone feel called to riff off of that?
I'll jump in. Go ahead. Letting go of beliefs. I mean, first off, most of your beliefs are inherited or programmed. They're not really yours, until you get to a certain point in your life where you understand the separation of me and I. You're running on everybody else's ideologies. So to let all that go is just a natural state of growth, the way I look at it. The more you mature yourself to consciousness, closer to consciousness, the more you realize that there's so much to let go, right? Me personally, I found it in my life. Life flows a lot better when you're not holding on to shit, especially other people's shit. Their emotions, their opinions, their way that they see life. I've found myself recently just to let it all flow. I try to, I have some vision and some direction that I want to go to, but I really try to just let it do its own thing. And I found myself to be a lot happier by that.
Yeah, Rome, you're speaking to this notion of the power of now, as Eckhart Tolle famously stated, is I think our culture in the past was so caught up in focusing on the past, ruminating on the past mistakes, or fear about the future. And flow, as you said, is being so present and living in the now and embracing mystery and trusting the unfoldment of what is occurring. And that's something that seemed to have been the theme last week. Our theme was vision. And a lot of people spoke about how vision has changed for them, and how that being in the moment, because we can't, more so than ever, the world is showing us the unpredictability and all of that. Stephanie, did you want to jump in? You had your hand up prior to Rome there.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much, and good insight as well. So I'd actually just had a quote pop in my head as that was happening, so I just wrote it down so I didn't forget. But I'm pretty sure it was Einstein. It was the quote where it's insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So going off of that, you really have to jump that hurdle of, oh, it's not possible. Oh, it's not this. And it's like, well, have you tried? Have you seen it? Have you done it? Have you given it a real try? And then you'll be surprised when you do give it that real try, because things typically go better. And then, as Rome said, when you're not clutching onto it, it tends to just flow more effortlessly. And for me, that's been something I've had a very interesting path, I guess, to get here. And I was in law school, as it was mentioned earlier. So I was very in that little narrative here, and it was a matter of letting go. So I had some crazy circumstances kind of happen, and it was a matter of kind of listening to, my intuition, following my gut. And then I was worried about leaving law school. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing not the right thing? What am I supposed to be doing, kind of a thing. And here 2 years later, I now see the bigger picture of why that all was. So it's a matter of letting go of needing to know right now, needing to know in this moment, because right now you don't have the insight as to why that's happening for you, not to you, for you. So if you can look at everything as kind of a lesson, well, what can I learn here? What is, maybe a reason of the bigger picture? And it's not necessarily trying to figure it all out right now, but maybe just keep in mind that there is probably a bigger picture that you're just not seeing right now. And it's all peeling back the onion.
Yeah, you just have to trust that process as you go along, because you're not going to know the future, but your guides do.
Totally.
Absolutely. I love that. And you spoke to what we talk a lot about here on Flow Network, is the different 5 levels of flow. And the first level is being sort of more of a victim of your circumstance mindset. why is this happening to me? And, being able to say, okay, what can I learn about that shifts us into an empowered state. So I love that you brought everything that you've added. Sharon, did you have anything that you wanted to bring about this?
Well, letting go is an inherent part of the learning process. We can't learn anything at all. Literally from the time we're born and we start to learn to lift our heads, and then we start to learn to roll over from our stomach to our back and our back to our stomach on our own. If those little infants couldn't let go of, well, this is the way life is, I have to stay here forever, they would never move. So letting go is, at its most basic level, part of learning. Mm-hmm. And on the most superficial level, I mean, think about when you were learning to ride a bicycle. I know I had training wheels. When I was learning to skate, I had bob skates, which, for those of you who don't know, are 2 blades instead of 1 blade. And then when I was ready, I got a chair and 1 blade. And then eventually the chair was taken away. And, one of my parents was behind me, ready to catch me if I was, or to let me fall, because falling is part of skating. So we let go all the time. The challenge with letting go is that when we get attached to something, or it feels scary, or we can't sort of unconsciously see into a future and see a future self being okay if we let go of something, and then it becomes even more difficult. Stephanie, you said it, is that when we feel like it is happening to us as opposed to for us. And, a lot of the leaders I am talking with right now are, we're coming out of a lockdown, hopefully at the end of this month. This is the 5th lockdown, I think, in 2 years in the part of in Ontario, Canada, where I live. And a lot of the leaders I'm talking to are feeling incredibly hopeless. Like, this is never going to end. This is my life. I can't get my workforce in. How am I supposed to get work done? And now people don't want to work. Like, they're done. And if they can't let go of that and find some way to see a way forward, or find the learning, or even better yet, the gift in this, if we can really get ourselves to the place where we think, okay, this is a really awful situation I don't want to be in, and it is in my life for a reason. Where's the gift? When we can do that, then it's easier to let go. But it's not easy, and it stretches us. And, when we go to the gym, or we have a personal trainer, or we go for a bike ride and we have second day soreness of muscles, we think, yay, that's so fantastic, I'm getting in shape. Well, this is kind of the same thing. It's emotional, so it's not as fun.
Yeah, well said. I think I'm seeing a lot in the business landscape and the online culture. More and more people are obviously bringing their businesses to the online space, and the hustle culture, and people can't handle so much stress anymore because we're all being stretched. Yeah. And so the business landscape is changing quite a lot, and more people are starting to bring value to spaciousness and moving slower and not hustling so much. So Rick, I'm thinking of you because you've been in the startup space and the business space for so many years. I'd love to hear your perspective on how you see the landscape of startup culture, innovation changing, especially in the last couple of years. Oh, is your mic on?
You're muted.
I think letting go is the most important part of the startup journey. But I want to talk about letting go just in general for a minute, because I was thinking about why we have trouble letting go, because when we let go, we're getting rid of beliefs or things or ideas or habits that were meaningful to us at one point. And sometimes you think, well, you don't want to change. But then I think of the snake that has to shed its skin, its entire skin, in order to grow. And so humans are actually, not expected to be quite that fully committed when they let go. So that's a good thing. I think that if you're going to progress, you've got to let things go. There's only so much baggage any of us can carry around. But I'm struck by how many people or other things or circumstances might get in the way of that. And it makes me think of any one of hundreds of recording artists, musicians, who hate playing their old stuff. They go to concerts, they want to show off all the new stuff, and everyone who shows up at the concert is a big fan who wants to hear the old stuff.
Yeah.
That they remember listening to in the car radio or in the basement in their suburban home growing up or whatever. And the recording artists say, we don't want to play silly love songs like She Loves You, yeah, yeah, yeah. We want to play Strawberry Fields Forever, and or rant against war and sing about peace and stuff like that. And I think that, you know, we all have to find our own path. Obviously, there's a million ways of letting go, but it's important maybe as you let go to also make sure that, hey, maybe I let too much go. And maybe sometimes you go back and retrieve something so that you have, you know, a more consistent identity going forward. You don't have to meet other people's expectations, but sometimes it's great to rediscover the things that meant something to you earlier on. So, you know, letting go may have tracks or circles that you don't expect. In the startup culture, though, generally companies that are startups are very poorly resourced, and there's 1 or 2 or 3 founders or early stage employees that do all the work. And the work of the leader or leaders in that case is to, as you achieve a certain amount of success or financial revenues, then you have the resources to hire more people. And it's so essential for the success of the business that the leaders let go of things so they can no longer interview every applicant.
Yeah.
If they do, then maybe they're not looking after the money or the customers well enough. You can no longer know every customer intimately. What you do is you hire people who can do these things for you. And usually you can find people who can do it better than you did because you're really not as good at everything as you think you are. So the entrepreneurs that I've met and chatted with over the last 20 years, you know, they're all trying to balance that in terms of how much do I let go? How quickly do I let go? How much do I let go? How much do I check up on and check back on? It's a difficult process. It's going to be different from everybody, but it's actually essential to moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't agree. And I see this comment from Grant. Hi, Grant, and hello to all of our viewers now and in the future. We love your comments and we read them. So in the replay, if you're here, hello and welcome. So he says it's hard to let go if the behavior is tied to well-entrenched patterns, which is the case for most of our beliefs. And it's humans have a difficulty in change. And also we talk a lot here at Flow Network about how we can't see for ourselves. Like we just, it can be so obvious to others and we just literally can't see when we're in our own stuff, so to say. And that is a part of the reason and the culture that we're looking to create and influence here as Wayshowers on Flow Network, is to say for businesses, for life, for everything moving forward, to cultivate conscious community where we can create non-judgmental spaces and help one another release, because we literally can't do it on our own. I mean, we can read books and that's a really great step, and we can learn and we can transform from reading books. But for me, moving forward, it's about our experience and it is about community connection. I think one of the things that we are awakening to, that is such a value, which we did speak about on our values episode, is the longing and the need that we have to have these deep connections with others and to build trust with others where we can feel safe to open up and say, you know, I'm challenged with this emotion, or, you know, I can't, what belief is holding me back here? Please help me. And I know in meeting Tim and Sharon, I was in a space where I knew something needed to shift. And there was a lot that I wanted to bring with me into this new world that is when we transform this or shed our skins from the past. Certain things that we love, we want to bring with us. And it's, you know, we can say let go of beliefs, but sometimes it's people that we have to let go of. And sometimes it's a job that we have to let go of. And like stepping into that unknown is scary, and we want this sense of safety or security, and we get that from, as Rick's point was, listening to the song that the singer is sick of singing for the past 15 years, but it gives us comfort because we want those memories or what have you. And so I wanted to circle back, and then whoever wants to pick and riff off on this one, because this book and circling back to your model, Tim, that you got from David Hawkins, is his letting go, as much as it is beliefs, is the emotion. We have stored up, because we're a culture that hasn't been educated on our emotions. How do we let go of emotions that have been suppressed for so long, right? How do we let go of shame and guilt when we expand and step into new territories? I've certainly seen and experienced in myself this well of shame and this well of guilt that has surfaced seemingly out of nowhere. And his philosophy is to let go into those feelings, where most of us want to suppress, deny, disown that we have these feelings, shove them under the rug, numb it out with a drug or go on social media or whatever. He is saying, go into that, let your body feel it without bringing thoughts to it. And there's this like burning up that happens when we sit into that. So maybe Tim, maybe you're the one that wants to riff off of this. I could see you smiling over there.
Well, thank you for that introduction there, Sarah. The interesting thing with beliefs, this is the consistent research on it, is 98, in Rome, you talked about it, 98%. So let's even just say 95%, so it's easier. 95% of our beliefs and our values and our interpretation, perception of that is unconscious. It's happening unconsciously. And so what Dr. David Hawkins talks about is the fact that we have to engage in the world in a totally different way to be able to engage with those beliefs so that they actually will dissolve, which is a practice that Sharon and I have been taught over a number of years, like a lot of years, 20 years or something like that, from our mentor. And it's the challenge with actually letting go is that you have to experience it and then allow it to dissolve. But in the experiencing of it, it feels so real that typically people who don't have an understanding of this will either push it away or stop the process of unraveling before it actually is let go. And Hawkins does a great job of explaining different scenarios and how that actually is effective. But I've never really heard, or in studying it, the techniques that he uses, and the techniques are very much refined as an individual needs to refine them. That's why in a group or network community, it's much easier to move through those types of things, because you really do, at the beginning in particular, you need someone else's help in terms of holding you. What would be the language? Holding you in their bandwidth, holding you in their vibration,
creating a safe place space and support for you.
Yeah.
So that you can feel what you're feeling. I literally had a conversation just the other day where the person on the phone was saying, a leader, a very accomplished leader, saying, I am losing my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I really think I need to call my doctor or take myself to a hospital and just get checked in because I have completely lost my mind. No, you haven't lost it. You're good. The fact that this is happening proves you haven't lost your mind, because
well, actually, in some ways, it's like we need to lose our mind, because that's part of this shift is getting out of our mind and trying to think. There's like the logic in this new world is different and out the window. Yes. I've certainly resonate with that feeling like, oh my God, I need help. I am losing my mind.
I'm crazy.
I'm going crazy. Okay, go ahead.
If I could just add to that comment, the typical process is, if you're actually got a deep rapport, deep trust with a client, an individual, a friend, a network, community member, you're able to hold them in that space while they're experiencing what is a very traumatic release. And in the moment, the person feels like they're losing their mind, and they are. The next day phone call was the follow-up phone call. The client called in this particular situation and said, well, I don't know what the hell, I lost my mind yesterday, but today I feel fine. And we're saying, you've let it go. Like, this is the process. You've let it go. Now, you could have stopped during the whole thing and then carried on and run to the hospital or whatever you need to do. And we see people acting out when they're in that situation of trying to process. And so they'll say things that are not all that nice. And then unconsciously, there's stuff that just goes on like crazy. But the act and the process of letting go, you do need trusted people to help you with that. Else you stay stuck, and it comes up again later, and it comes up again later, and it comes up again into infinity.
There's another perspective to this as well, though. A lot of people can't let go because they're so in their headspace, they're so in their heart space, right? They're too much in the thought, or they're too much into the emotion of the situation. They're not allowing that to pass through. But there's another space that a lot of people don't think of, and I think letting go of things helps. And when you're not in your head or in your heart so much, is just the subconscious, the conscious, the higher self, right? The inner self. And I think humans have a big amnesia as we go through life to realize that we are just, a meat spacesuit. This physical thing here that we're carrying around, isn't it doesn't have to be, everything. So if you're allowing yourself to, if you want yourself to release on something, allowing yourself to get out of your headspace and get out of your thought pattern, and allow your higher self to take you through that, to realize that you're just not all this. This is just your facade, your coverage. This is just who you are now. It doesn't have to be everything that you are.
Yeah, I think, Rome, you're speaking to as some teachers call the little self, or the ego self, versus your higher self. And I saw an article that you shared, actually, from the beloved Thich Nhat Hanh that passed away on the 22nd, as just a lovely teacher and big influence.
At 0000.
000. And in it, because he teaches about the art of letting go very much.
Yeah.
And he said he taught about letting go, and in letting go, there's also a letting in. I loved that point. And he said it's letting in our inner teacher, letting in that wisdom, that higher self voice that is there. And a lot of that journey of the losing the mind, or that battle that we experience within, is what is the old belief, or what is the beliefs that actually aren't mine, to that gentle, quiet, intuitive voice that we all have inside of us, that is our inner teacher. Stephanie, I kind of feel like throwing it over to you, because we recently had a conversation where you shared, like, oh my gosh, am I losing my mind in the more old school world, and leaving the law school, and sort of your journey as you're really in it, as we all are, in terms of discerning that voice, and whatever you want to share on that topic.
Thank you. Yeah, I do have a couple points on that, actually, too. So that's funny that you felt called to throw it over my way. With the letting go and losing the feeling of losing your mind, it is important to kind of lose your mind in that way, to let go, as it's been mentioned by everybody here. It's really important to, I don't know, kind of just sit there with it. And then in the last time I was messaging you about it, I was like, I feel like I'm, losing my mind here. Like it's just like so much, there's this and that and whatever. And then I was like, wait, that's the point. And I was like, that's literally the point. Like, I need to just sit here and not, like, I just need to just not, like, that's it. And then the next day I woke up and I like had moved forward, like, an entirely new paradigm. And I was like, nice. Like, we just kind of shifted out of that one. So every time I go through this little like epiphany of like letting that go, something better comes in, and I keep like elevating. It's like little step stools, like all the way up. And it's really hard. And I think a lot of people feel like they lose their mind when they're going down this path of like self-awakening, self-realization, because it's literally so different than what we've been taught. All of our thoughts and our actions and our habits and our beliefs are literally formulated by how we grew up, what other people instilled on us, how we learned to survive in the world, right? So like once you peel all those back and like you question, if you get triggered by something, you're like, well, why do I think that? Like kind of go down to that deeper root of it, to like, in order to surface it, to let it go. Because like once you're acknowledging it, then you're able to change that, and you're able to like make it conscious instead of unconscious, where it's just like, oh, I just don't like that. And it's like, well, why don't you like that? And it's like, well, I don't know. I never really thought about it, So it's kind of peeling back different layers and lots of different contexts to letting go, because we're not really taught about this. So I had mentioned my minor too is thanatology, which is the study of death, dying, and bereavement. It's about how people grieve and how people handle loss. So it's kind of funny that I did that in college before I was even spiritual. I felt like a connection with it. And it's a matter of just understanding that it's all a process. It's literally all a process. When people pass over, it's like, yes, of course, we're going to have these different stages. They're not sequential. Like we can go in and out. We can, stay in one stage, and it's all a matter of what you are capable of in that moment with your consciousness and everything like that. So when we are experiencing these things, it's important to feel those feelings. And it's not like you don't want to invalidate yourself in any sense of the word. I feel like so many people just have these they inhibit their emotions because they've been invalidated, because they've been shut down in the past, and they think that's how they have to deal with it. But that's like the opposite of it. And I watched this amazing documentary, if anybody's familiar. It was Emotion 2.0 with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Nassim Haramein. Love them. And I was watching, and it was incredible because it was talking about when you don't process those emotions, they literally have a physical effect on your body.
Right. They fester, they sit there, and they boil.
And they turn into health conditions. We don't let this go, it literally, it affects us in more ways than just mentally. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Just riffing on that, I have a story about some people who taught me something about letting go. I've always thought that the stuff you collected around you in life was important. And some friends of ours moved a couple of years ago, and they were moving a long way to a much smaller house. So they had to give up a lot of stuff. And I remember thinking, well, I'm glad I'm not then. I'm glad I don't have to deal with the great purge. So they went and got a dumpster and rented it and put it in their driveway for a couple of weeks. And every night they'd have this parade out to the dumpster, dumping stuff in. And at first, it was hard deciding what goes, which does grandma's furniture really have to go? What about her crock pot? The clothes that don't quite fit anymore, but might if you just keep them long enough. But what they discovered was that the more they dumped, the happier they got.
Yeah.
And as they got rid of more and more stuff, the burden of that stuff lightened on them.
Rick, you're mentioning this, and I have to interrupt because it's bringing my attention. A few years back, the wife and I sold everything, bought an RV, and you only have limited space. And so we went from 3,000 square feet to 300 square feet, and that removing of all that stuff was so liberating. It was so liberating.
My point was going to be that instead of robbing you of your identity by getting rid of that stuff, it actually lets you refocus on who you are and who you've always been and who you're going to be. And it was just an incredibly powerful transformation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
Well, I'm just excited because within a business context, there's an interview Jim Collins does, the business guy, with some guy, I don't remember his name, but it was a number of years ago. And they said they've stolen from the entrepreneur, they've stolen the ability to let go. Because in business and in startup, typically you're funded to just go and I'm going to sell you on a trajectory. I'm going to hit these markers and this is how we're going to do it. And in that situation, it is almost impossible to let go once you've actually started and been financed. And what the article was about was saying we've taken the human out of the entrepreneur and put a process in place. And the process is actually driving a strategy that is no longer relevant in like 98% of the cases of startups. But because we haven't learned how to let go, these startups continue to crash and then burn. And then they go, okay, well, there's a whole pile of money that got invested. And it's just a terrible, terrible situation for everyone because they're so committed to that initial trajectory. And that's not the way life goes for anybody. As
expectations, right?
Yeah.
It's also not how the entrepreneur who becomes successful enough that a lot of money is invested in their venture didn't get there by following one straight line path.
Yeah.
In fact, she or he got there by a whole process of letting go.
Yeah.
And the difference, I would, Stephanie, I think you specifically touched on it, or maybe it was someone else, is that we have a choice. When we're letting go, the reason I think it's so difficult and emotional is because we look at what we're losing. But if you just turn slightly the other way, what are you gaining? And Rick, you just spoke to it. Your friends gained all this freedom. Rome, you said the same thing. Stephanie, where are you now that, you made this very scary decision to, like, not everybody gets to get into law school.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Making space, right?
accomplishment. And you worked your bum off to get there. And then when, wall, maybe my whole life path is not my whole life path.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I've never met a happy lawyer. So
Okay, somebody said that to me after law school. I had a lease still. I was up in Boston living there. By the way, it's very like go, 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 like quick energy. So it's been a very dynamic shift for me over the past 2 years of getting out of that way of life. But yeah, I was going to law school because I didn't know what my path was. And I didn't know, like, I thought that's what it was because society told me that's what success was. I was following and seeking external validation. And then I ended up, literally the universe intervened. That's the only way I can explain it. Like, I had something happen at the law school that like forced me into this position of like, well, I just lost my whole scholarship because of an accident that they caused. And like, they said they were going to help and now they're not helping. So like, am I going to take out an entire loan for this? Absolutely not. You did this to me, so why would I pay you for that? So I'm not even happy doing it. You know what I mean? So I left, and then I still had to pay for the lease and living up in Boston. So I was a recruiter for law professionals. And somebody said that on the phone to me when I called them. They were like, why did you not finish law school? And I like kind of explained, it just like wasn't for me, not like happy. And then the guy said, I've never met a happy lawyer.
Yeah. I was actually talking to accredited lawyer the other day in Quebec, who's not practicing law, and she said that there's this saying in French that essentially translates as "law can lead you anywhere," and I thought, that's it. That's the lie they tell you in order to get you to go to law school, and then if you're unhappy afterwards, you're only out $200,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And I feel like it's a lot like, I don't know, along with the whole it's everything growing on your own self path is a matter of unlearning everything you've been taught, because it's been other people just like shifting their beliefs and everything on you. So it's a matter of like kind of understanding that and reworking like, well, who am I then? So getting rid of all of those things in the process of like, I don't like, it's masqueraded as like, you can do so much good. You can help so many people. That's why I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to like help. I wanted to bring justice. I wanted to bring truth. I wanted to, be good. And it just, unfortunately, like from the inside, I could see it very much wasn't that. Like, it was very much a game of like, who could just find the biggest loophole and like make a masquerade of this. And I'm like, that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
You're lucky enough to have the presence to look inside yourself
yeah.
to see that, because a lot of people, they just don't. And like what I spoke to earlier, they're just too emotionally attached or too mentally attached to what's going on that they can't. I was a bartender for a period in my life, and you'd be surprised how many problems that you solve for clients. And I think a lot of it is because they come to the bartender. You're a third neutral person. Mostly, maybe you don't know them, and they feel free to just throw this at you to see what kind of perspective you can get. And that's when I said before, sometimes you're just too close to the scenario. You have to pull back out of it. You got to leave your emotions behind. You got to leave your mental thoughts behind and what you've been taught and programmed. And look, from a higher perspective, yourself, the bartender's perspective, right? Because it would always be more honest and open to, an individual thought. So trying to let that go when you're too close. So how do you do that? How do you, Tim, tell us, when you're too emotionally attached to something, or you're too convicted to one state or another, how do you see through yourself to get there?
Well, I think that without going into the mechanics of letting go, because I don't want to actually go down into the swamp that deeply right here. There are definite mechanics and there's stages a person can go through. And it is, in my experience, I've learned through other people. And that's very much what this is about. But the challenge starts at the very, very beginning, because in our education system, we've been taught that from a rationally, subjective perspective, you need to actually fit in. You need to fit in. You need to fit in. You need to actually, plan a life for yourself, get the house, take out the loan, all those types of things. And there's so much influence to fit in that we become victims of circumstance, because the fitting in, nobody fits in unless you actually try and make yourself go into a little ball or a little, start to be a whatever it is that you think or your parents thought was to fit in. For me, my parents, I had the choice to actually go on tour as a musician when I came back from tour over in Europe, and came back, and then mom and dad sat me down and said, "Hey, we love you. We have lots of friends that are very creative, and we think you should go to school and go to a business school to be able to go and get some strong foundation. And then once you get that, you can do whatever you want." Read. I was the eldest in the family. And so I thought, oh man, I want to do this music thing, but all right. So I'll go and get the designation and everything and fit in and get all loaded up. Mine was
someone else's belief system.
Yeah, exactly. And in the process, it just about killed me. And all depending on how much time you have, I could whine to you for freaking years about how unbelievably difficult that was. And I got a number of designations because I thought, well, you know what?
Yeah, because one thing that you hate isn't enough. You may as well get 3.
Yeah. So I just thought, I'm just going to go like crazy. Now, what it's done is given me a foundation to understand why so many other people in business in particular are stuck, because they're trying to fit in. But it's the entertaining the discussion that, are you living your life path or your parents' life path, or somebody who is influencing societies in general. So it's not until you can actually even have that discussion with someone till you can get to the stage where even letting go starts to open up, because everyone here really understands that there is a mechanics that happens inside the body that has to take place for us to learn to actually allow it just to drift out of our system.
So is the first mechanical step is acknowledgement then?
Yeah, it's acceptance and allowing.
And then acknowledgement and then accepting.
Yeah,
and then allowing.
Yeah, you have to actually consider, maybe the education system was set up for the industrial age, and it was meant to get us all safe and working in the structure of business, and maybe we had broadcast media told us to actually go and buy more stuff than we could ever afford. And now we have social media that actually does that. And maybe we're on this road that we didn't design, and we've just become party to, because it's just, we haven't been taught to think for ourselves particularly. We just been taught to fit in. So that's the initial discussion, because even in my experience, when I teach people the deeper skills at the subconscious level to let go, what always comes up is, what the hell? How did I actually get here? I feel, and then people get really pissed because they haven't gone on their own journey to realize, well, you agreed when you were really young to actually follow this path. Typically, you didn't choose. So that's where I find it's really helpful. You have to at first acknowledge that the life you're living, chances are you were set on a trajectory that you had no understanding that you were choosing. Which is just so cool.
Part of my mantra is that to let go of all the things that don't serve you no more. I think I've spoken about that before. I think you mentioned it to Stephanie once or twice.
Yeah. And I just want to speak to the feeling of betrayal that we sometimes experience. Well, we always will experience when we thought life or the world or a person was one way, and we then are enlightened about something else. And there's this feeling of betrayal that is a real challenging feeling to process. And there is a grief, and there's a grief in letting go of your old identity. So Stephanie, you had your hand up, and maybe if you want to riff off of grief as well or whatever.
Yeah, that was actually exactly what I was going to mention. I think it's funny because that's, if you know about the the 5 stages of grief, they call it, it's that's like a template, I guess. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be all 5. It can be through, and it doesn't have to be sequential, like I mentioned before. But I think it's really interesting that the study of grief is all about like the denial, the bargaining, the, like those like guilt feelings, all of that. And then when you accept it, you propel forward. You know what I mean? Like you are in an entirely new thing. Like we're all talking about the acceptance part, but it's interesting too that like there's that whole lower spectrum of the emotions and maybe it's like the Hawkins scale, but it's like that lower, working your way up to like from the grief, from the shame to, pleading for no, like something different, and then kind of getting to the acceptance and realization of moving on. And it's not about like feeling bad or guilty that you were that way, because you did the best you could with the level of consciousness that you had at the moment. So those past versions of yourself are the ones that got you here. So like you can't like hate those parts of you. You can't judge those parts of you. You have to like hug those parts of you where it's like you did so good. Like you got us here. Like you got us here. No matter what you did, how it went, like that's exactly what needed to happen to get you here right now. So it's a matter of like honoring those parts and kind of feeling the feelings and accepting whatever it is that you feel. And there's probably a reason beneath it, bring that to the conscious side and understand it, pick at it. And that's how you get to the acceptance too.
Yeah. Sharon.
Well, Sarah, this is a bit of a tangent, but we have some really great comments being made by the people who are watching.
We do.
Talking about, letting go is easier when you have a support system. It's really hard to let go when you're rooted in patterns. Anthea saying that, that she had no straight paths as a business owner ever. And Catherine talking about this one, trauma affects our health and will change our genetics over 7 generations.
Yeah.
Like that's profound.
Yeah. And that's important to recognize. And I think sometimes when we are in the thick of the uncomfy emotions is to adopt a bigger perspective about this evolutionary journey we're experiencing. And when we heal these generational wounds, basically, some of the stuff that we're experiencing isn't from our lifetime. We're literally carrying stories in our DNA and our genes from up to 7 generations back. So because we have the level of consciousness and the skills and the tools and the education through social media and connection and the internet that we have right now, I like to adopt the mindset that we get to do this work. My parents' generation and before that, no idea. I get to do this work. And although it's uncomfortable, I have this higher perspective that I am actually changing 7 generations back. I'm giving meaning to the suffering that my ancestors have experienced.
Yeah.
Rome, what is this?
And making a difference for the next generations.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just the acceptance. That's the applause meter right there for what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and this is the point. And there's the beautiful metaphor. I don't know where it came from, whether it was Zen or whatnot, but it's like the planting of the olive tree. The people that plant the olive tree do not bear the fruit of that tree, but their generations to come will. And the beautiful thing is, I remember reading that years and years ago when I was just starting my awakening journey and thinking, how unfair is that? But the beauty is actually when we are in service with that higher perspective, that's actually what brings us joy and fulfillment. And so it's not this unfair thing. It's actually stepping into our role and into our purpose and into just simply our reason for being. And we experience joy in that space.
That's beautiful.
Well, and linking to what Catherine said, for me, I'm 3.5 years into cancer treatment, and I am going deeper into treatment, and I've had a tremendous amount of chemotherapy. I lost count in the 30s. So I've had more than north of 30 rounds of chemotherapy. And I'm doing much better than my oncologist expects me to be doing. And a big part of that is because having this broader perspective, being as well resourced as I am internally resourced because of the work that I fell into my path. I fell into my path like many of us do. This wasn't a thing when I was going on. No guidance counselor ever said, you could learn this stuff and teach leadership, Sharon.
Yeah.
Said no guidance counselor in the 1970s in the part of Canada I lived in, just saying. So that wasn't an option. So being able to do this work and taking that bigger perspective, Sarah, and being of service helps me continue to expand and grow, even though in many ways, especially because of the pandemic and specifically because of how contagious Omicron has been, my actual world has shrunk to this very, very small place in terms of where I can go and what I can do. But my experience is constantly expanding, and that expansive energy feeds my health.
Yeah.
Yes. And
it feeds. And my mother died of this same cancer in the 1970s, but I don't have the genetic strain, either of them. There's 2 genetic strains, and I don't have it. But I do have the same cancer that my mother had. And so when I have really bad days and I feel like, why am I doing this? I think about my great nieces and nephews, and their children, and my nieces and nephews.
You're the olive tree.
Feel deeply enough.
the olive tree.
Maybe nobody else will need to go through this.
Yeah, Sharon, you are the Rome just peeked in there to say, Sharon, you are the olive tree. And, you know, we've had many beautiful discussions, the 3 of us, and we met in flow and synchronicity. And we clearly can see that I've had challenges, circumstances in my life that brought me into the life of you and Tim. And Tim said we wouldn't have met if you hadn't had cancer. And we're now expanding your vision, the both of you, your vision, which has been about supporting the younger generations and bringing forth all of the life lessons that you guys have both had. So just honoring you for all your work, because you've been a way shower for such a long time, and your life experience and support for me and my letting go journey has been huge. And I don't know where I would be without you guys and your knowledge and lessons. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being you. And that is the power and just the inspiration for you to still be of service to others while you're going through some crazy challenges is amazing. And you're speaking to this essence that, like, what keeps you going through this time is that joy that you get in being service to others. Is you're actually, like, you know, doing that and a tangible example of that. And this whole concept, as well as which was inspired the Flow Content Creation Challenge that I'll throw it up while I have it here, that we're doing, is that when we can lock into our creativity, it pulls us through our challenging times. So as community and culture right now is to focus, to, you know, lift each other up out of our disempowered state of, like, oh my gosh, the world is going to shit, and saying, no, let's be empowered here. We are the co-creators. How can we bring innovation and creativity to make real change? And actually that's going to pull us through the challenging times that we're experiencing right now. So I'll finish with the Anthea's comment here is such excellent leadership for others, Tim and Sharon. Truly, you are living your values with Lightcore, which is enlightened leadership. So, okay, Stephanie had her hand.
Sorry, I was just going to mention on that too, a lot of, like, the Renaissance artists and the new waves of, like, creativity and the new ways of thinking and the new discoveries in science and everything all happened after, like, a pandemic type of, like,
oh yeah,
like,
you're right.
Yeah, all the
people
Renaissance.
down.
You're right. It did.
Yeah.
So,
Like, after, like,
That's
these,
a
like,
brilliant observation, Stephanie.
Is that the 4 turnings again?
Those 2, the 4th turning, and that's like a whole thing about the generations and the blocks of time, like history repeating itself and everything. And that kind of is where the quote I mentioned earlier came from, where it's like doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity. So it's about kind of seeing now that we've been doing something so wrong, and we're like, no, let's change this. And then that's where the rebirth happens. So that was just my point.
Very good. Tim and I actually spoke about that Renaissance, because my background, I'm Italian, and there was what was the name? It was Di Felice, or my last name's Di Felice, but there was some Di Medici or something.
Medici.
The
Medici.
They
Yeah.
basically funded the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're all
bankers
about
and lawyers.
Yeah.
That's right. inspiring the creative class is exactly
Absolutely.
what is occurring right now.
I just wanted to throw in a quote that fell into my lap this morning, and I thought it was really relevant to what we're talking about today. There's a saying that we all have two lives, and the second one, the more productive one, begins when we realize we only have one life. So there's a chance to get reborn in life and realize, okay, this is what really matters. This is the reset. This is the letting go. This is the embracing new opportunities. And, you know, we all encounter that in our lives, and hopefully we do it sooner rather than later.
You know, you've ever meet someone who had a near-death experience or a heart attack or a disease or cancer, you're going to see their perspective change in a hurry.
Not always, sadly.
I guess that's
but
true.
The ones who thrive,
are the ones who do that.
I had an incident once. I got in a car accident. It was really, really bad. But I ignored the whole situation because I had to be out of state for a very important meeting with my father, who I hadn't seen in 7 years. But the accident happened the day I was to travel. So we went, did the whole week with the father, the stepkids, and brothers and sisters and all that. Came back, went to go retrieve my stuff from my car, who was at the pound, and it was completely destroyed. I got T-boned by a pickup truck and a Toyota, you know, and I was doing 45. I don't know what he was. Anyways, on the windshield, it was a blood from my head, and you know, head wounds bleed a lot. On the windshield said fatality. I turned the corner. I looked at the car. I saw the car. It was my car. It was me. And from that moment on, I was like, I am so grateful to be above ground, and that changed my whole perspective of things. It was that turning point. I was just going through life, you know, doing my grind. And then when I saw that, you know, that perspective that I was actually dead, it gave me regeneration.
Wow. The one thing I want to just finish with quickly was just recognizing, even for today's broadcast, I just feel like just crap. Like I'm just shaking with emotion to the point where I can hardly just conduct myself. And Sharon said, well, don't go on the show today. And I thought, nope, this is the place to actually come.
Tim, I love you. I love you. You're the best, man. You're awesome.
Yeah. You are. And I want to talk, and you bring tears to me as well, because that emotion, especially from your generation, that is such a powerful thing to show that, and to be human and to be real. Because especially more males in your generation, like I said, it's just, you know, you have to be the stoic one. You have to shove things down. You're, you know, it's not appropriate on a broadcast for a man to cry. Like, these are the belief systems of the old world that are no longer serving us. And so thank you so much for showing
the emotion aside.
Leave your emotions at the door.
Be rational.
Especially in a business context, right? Like, so thank you, Tim. Thank you.
I'm taking notes, Tim, that you're letting down the side.
Well, it was one of those things. I thought, after all the wonderful, brilliant things that was said, Stephanie, and then Rome and that kind of stuff, I thought, do I really need to actually still share that? But it's true. It's about showing up, and it is about showing up, recognizing that this is where I get joy. This is
Catherine says it's a good day to start a new painting.
Good day. Yes, Tim. Let's see. Yeah, Tim's been on fire lately with his art to speak to this renaissance, like, you know, what you're experiencing in the journey with Sharon. It is the true leadership of the future, is to be vulnerable and share. So thank you so much.
Yeah, because it's not typically, especially in a business context. I mean, there's been so many situations where clients have cried and then really broken down with me, but it's behind closed doors. And no one is aware of that, which is the challenge, because not until then they're crying at home, like the VPs or whoever it is, and everyone shows up as all really stoic and really solid, especially for men. And that just, it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable anymore. And it is, I think, it's one of those things. I used to make a choice of saying, no, I'm actually just going to show the bold face. But at this point, just where the journey that Sharon's on, the journey that we're on, where life is, Yeah, it's all over the place. And part of the letting go is being in that space and allowing that energy to actually dissolve and just being with it and then being okay with it, which, that's a fast version of the mechanics associated with letting go, but it does require a massive amount of courage and trust and all kinds of things, which we don't get taught typically.
No, we don't. And that in working with you, Tim, it's been such an honor and growing this relationship with you and co-founding Flow Network together. And I remember early on, we were just willing to go so deep because of our life situations that we were in. And I remember continually having different stories or biases that would come up in working with, a patriarchal, someone in the old world business. And, I'm coming in just flow and I'm this yogini and whatever. Yeah. And I remember like your ability to pivot so quickly was, on par with mine, I'll have to say. And you're brilliant at pivoting and just taking things and automatically like just changing, which is the art of letting go. And you really are a master of that. Well, we're just doing big hugs.
Yes, well, thank you. And the interesting thing is in terms of, I was going to bring it up and you brought it up, the difference between pivot and shift. Pivot means you're actually still staying in the same place. Shift is you let go, you drift, and then you pop up. Having let go of something, you're a new person. So it is a term I see used all the time in business when they talk about pivots. Letting go is not a pivot. Letting go is a shift.
Yeah, well, we have a series that Tim and I have been doing since the beginning of Flow Network to document the evolution of our journey together and the foundation of Flow Network. And there's the big game, the big play, and then we did the big pivot, which was right when the first lockdown happened. Yeah. And then, we realized like, okay, you can only pivot so much. It's actually a shift. So we have some new series is coming soon. So stay tuned.
Coming soon. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
TV.
Just plug it. When's the next Sharon Hour?
Oh, thanks, Rome.
Next Saturday.
Yeah.
Plug it.
Yeah. So the Sharon Hour, we launched the first Sharon Hour ever on Saturday, and Sharon is sharing her wisdom with story and song, and it's really powerful, just vulnerably sharing her journey and where she's at. And, whether you yourself are dealing with health challenges or any other challenge or crisis, or it's someone you love, you will for sure gain value in the Sharon Hour. So Saturday is the next, and there's a bunch of brilliant episodes. Tim and Sharon have an episode together, which is great to see their journey together. And then Sharon actually interviewed her mentor of, was it 25 years, Sharon?
So looking forward to that.
30. We both tried to remember when we met each other, and it's sort of like it's been 85,000 years. So
yeah, many, many lives. So that was a powerful, it's such an honor for me to produce that show, and I can't wait to share it. I've
got some great Anthea, who's on the on the call with us today, as soon as we can get together, she's enjoying the winter somewhere else in Canada at this point. So she's going to come and have a conversation about how we actually ride the waves. She is very successful in life and business. And she went through like a series of perfect storms in her business and learned to harness that really challenging, chaotic wave energy and grow her business and achieve her dreams. So we're going to talk about how that happened inside. Mm-hmm. And Rome has a podcast as well called Come As You Are. Do you want to say a few things about it, Rome?
It is premiering February 2nd at 2:22 Eastern Time. The podcast is Come As You Are, and it's basically interviewing a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, wayseers, TikTokers, creators, spiritual workers, light workers, and it's just an hour basically of just getting to know them and hanging out on a casual basis. And then there's some questions for them. Sarah's on schedule.
I'm on schedule, so if you have any questions,
send me in questions. We do a 20 questions bit at the end there. So any question you want to ask Sarah, send it in. And we're also scheduling to interview other people. So if you know someone and you want to recommend somebody, I think it's going to be a great show.
Beauty. Yeah. If you're not already in the Flow Network community, it's literally called Flow Network Community on Facebook. So we welcome you. And a part of this Leaders Live Roundtable is basically to set the theme for the Flow Content Creation Challenge, where we are literally asking you to share your voice, to get on video and talk about what letting go means to you. Just a short video, upload it and share it into our community. And this is about building community conversation and perspective. And we really feel when we share our story and our vision, we literally transform our community, and we are transforming our culture by putting these values of vulnerability and connection and trust together. So we'd love to hear from you. We were just going to do it for the end of, for January, but we've had such a great uplift. We might keep it going. Hey guys, what do you think?
We can't let it go.
Yeah.
Well, we'll for sure let it go. This was kind of is this the applaud meter? I have to.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Yes. We've had such a great connections occurring. So we'll be keeping this going for sure. If you'd like to have a spot here at the Roundtable on our live, send us a DM and we'll be happy to have you. Come join us and join us in the Flow Network community. For Stephanie on TikTok, if you want to put your information in the comments later so people can go on and check out your stuff. There is a funny video I shared with Tim and Sharon because they're not on TikTok yet of you screaming into the void.
I love that, Stephanie.
Awesome.
That was the best.
So good. I was laughing.
It's the best.
She basically just said, let's take this moment to be zen.
Hey, I'll put her out there. If you want to see some really good entertainment and some good creation stuff, go see Stephanie's TikTok channel.
Thank you guys.
It's got some great content over there.
And
thank
feel
you so
free
much
to share your podcast as well, Startup Canada. You have such an eclectic array of different people and diverse group of people that you've been interviewing as well. So check out Rick's podcast. Is there anything else you want, Rick, people to check out?
Startupcanada.ca is where the podcast is. There's my podcast, which is for, as we say, every entrepreneur. And there's also a podcast for women entrepreneurs, and a podcast for Indigenous entrepreneurs. So the podcast network is growing at Startup Canada.
I'm like that. I'm right there.
Wow.
Love it. So
I just wanted to add one more thing before you close things off.
Sure.
And I just wanted to flip the script just a little bit, in that I think that one way to look at letting go is to look at, where you are now and say, are you seeing a better future ahead of you? Are you on the right path? Are you having trouble getting where you want? Are you having trouble being the self you want to be, or finding, that landing the opportunities that you see out there? Then I think maybe that's when you look at, hey, what am I not letting go of?
Yeah.
And so as opposed to it being a process, look at it also as a potential tool that can help you get on that path again.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well said. Yes. Self-reflection is so important. So thank you guys. 108 is, I think, a great place to wrap up here. Thank you so much for your time, leaders, for being at this roundtable and sharing your presence and your wisdom. And thank you to all our viewers for your comments. This is all about participation and engagement. So we just love it so much. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to keep it going. We don't even know what our topic is yet. But we will for sure have a very important another topic. Thank you guys so much. Wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah.
If you're looking for a conscious community, we invite you to Flow Network 99. Wake up, show up, light up, and let's flow, baby.